All right, let's dive into one of the Bible's most detailed and honestly most debated visions, the temple, in the final chapters of Ezekiel. It's this incredible architectural marvel on paper that has had scholars scratching their heads for centuries. So, what in the world is it?
And when I say detailed, I mean really detailed. For instance, Ezekiel's told the inner court is 100 cubits long, and the width, you guessed it, also 100 cubits. We get these super specific measurements for gates, for chambers, for altars. It all feels so incredibly real. But that precision, that's actually where the mystery begins. And that leads us to the big question for today. Are we looking at a literal architectural blueprint for a temple that's actually going to be built someday? Or is there something else going on here? Could this be a profound temple-shaped symbol trying to tell us something much, much deeper? To even begin to answer that, we have to go back in time. We need to understand the world Ezekiel was living in when he got this vision. This wasn't a message delivered during some peaceful, quiet time. No, it came right in the middle of a massive crisis. The source material calls this a sacred space catastrophe. And honestly, that just nails it. See, the exile wasn't just some political defeat for Israel. It was a theological earthquake. The temple, the one place they understood God to literally dwell with them, was gone, destroyed. The question hanging over everyone was terrifying. Has God left us for good? The timeline here is just everything. So, in 586 BCE, the unthinkable happens. Solomon's temple is completely destroyed. The people are dragged off into exile. Then, 25 years deep into that despair, Ezekiel gets this mind-blowing vision of a new, perfect temple. It's like a burst of pure hope dropped right into total hopelessness. Now, with all those hyper-specific details we talked about, the most straightforward way to read this seems pretty obvious, right? A lot of people look at these chapters and see a clear-cut blueprint for a future physical temple. Let's dig into why that idea is so powerful. I mean, the evidence for it being a literal blueprint is pretty compelling. You've got pages and pages of meticulous measurements. It spells out exactly what the priests need to do, the specific sacrifices they have to offer, and even how the land gets divided up among the 12 tribes. It reads way more like a construction manual than a poem. And this quote just perfectly sums up that whole line of thinking. The argument goes, why would God give all these specific numbers and rules if he didn't intend for them to be followed, letter for letter, in a real building project? It's a really strong case, but it's not the whole story. Because when we zoom in and really start investigating the details, some really puzzling clues start to pop up. Clues that make you question that simple, literal reading and suggest something way more complex is going on. Okay, our first big clue is this mysterious character called the Prince, or Nashi in the original Hebrew. Now, if this is a temple for the end times, you'd probably assume this prince has to be the Messiah. But the way the text describes him, it creates some pretty serious problems with that idea. So here's the tension. Ezekiel's prince is directly involved with sin offerings and purification rituals. That implies he's part of a system that's still dealing with sin. He's a ruler, sure, but he's also limited by the temple's rules. That's a stark contrast to the New Testament's picture of the Messiah, whose sacrifice is final, it's once for all, and who, because he's sinless, doesn't need any offering for himself. This prince just doesn't quite fit the profile. This second puzzle is just as big, if not bigger. This vision describes in great detail a fully restored system of animal sacrifices. For anyone reading the whole Bible, this raises a massive theological red flag. Is this a theological reversion? In other words, if the rest of Scripture points to the Messiah's sacrifice as the final, perfect, all-sufficient sacrifice for sin, why would God's ultimate plan involve going back to the old system of sacrificing animals? It feels like it's moving the story of redemption backward, not forward. And now we get to our final and maybe the most incredible clue. This one isn't a measurement or a rule. It's a miraculous river that flows right out of the temple itself. This river's journey is just, wow. It starts as this little trickle from the sanctuary, but as it flows, it gets deeper and deeper until you can't even cross it. And get this, wherever this water goes, it brings life. It even transforms the Dead Sea, literally one of the most lifeless places on Earth, into a thriving, abundant ecosystem. This is not just about plumbing. This is Eden-level, new creation imagery that goes way beyond any normal building. So you've got this mysterious prince, a return to sacrifices, and a miraculous life-giving river. These clues just force us to look beyond simple architecture. They push us to think about a totally different interpretation of what this vision is really trying to say. So here we are with two competing views. The literal blueprint idea kind of gets stuck on all these puzzling clues. But the symbolic vision idea, it doesn't see them as problems. It sees them as signposts. It argues that the vision is using the language and imagery of a temple to communicate a powerful theological message. The form isn't the point. The message inside the form is. So if it isn't just a blueprint, what is the ultimate message? Why does this vision even matter, both for those exiles who first heard it and for us today? The source material uses this brilliant phrase, a temple-shaped proclamation. Think about it. For a people who had just lost their temple, the very center of their world, how else could God communicate a message of restoration? He spoke their language, using the most powerful symbols they knew to tell them about his incredible plan for the future. So what is each element preaching? All those obsessive measurements? They're not just for builders. They're shouting that God will bring perfect order out of chaos. The strict rules aren't just about legalism. They declare that getting access to a holy God is a serious and wonderful thing. The return of God's glory is the ultimate promise. He will dwell with his people again. And that river? It preaches that wherever God is, real life flourishes, and death itself is pushed back. And this is where it all lands. The very last verse of the book of Ezekiel, the final word of this epic vision, isn't a measurement. It isn't a rule. It's the new name for the city, Yahweh Shammah. In English, the Lord is there. In the end, this whole incredible vision isn't about the dimensions of a building. It's about the glorious, overwhelming reality of God's presence with this people. And the question that leaves us with isn't, when will this be built? It's, how do we live today knowing that God's ultimate desire is simply to dwell with us?